Man, man. It's been a long time coming. I haven't made a parts list video in a long time, and I know I haven't made a YouTube video in a few months. So in today's video, what we're gonna be doing is I'm gonna show you all the parts that I have used to make 465 horsepower and what parts I'm going to be upgrading for the next build. In this video, I'm gonna be showing you guys everything that I have used to make 465 horsepower. I know it's been a really long time, but we're gonna get through this video. I was supposed to make this video years ago, and honestly, I just haven't had the time to do it. And when I did wanna do it, just different variables came about. So finally, I'm gonna get you guys this video. I had another video that I was in the process of editing from a couple months ago, but we're gonna put this one out first because a lot of people have asked me, what have I used? How can they build their car? And these are everything you're gonna need to know. All the parts are gonna be listed in the description below, and I will put some pictures. I'll try to put some pictures in this video so you guys can see what I'm talking about, either in this corner or in this corner, whatever corner it is. And if you guys haven't seen the last update video, it's gonna be on the top, one of these two sides. You're gonna see it right up there, and let's get into this video. All right, so there's no better way to show you a real example. So right here, we have, okay, so this head is for the 2AZ-FE. For you guys that don't know, this is for the 2002 to 2006 Toyota Camry. It is for the 05 to 010 Scion TC. And then they came out with a new variant that is the 2AR motor. It's pretty similar to this, a little bit different, but this is the 2AZ-FE. So this is the head. So right now, I'm gonna show you guys what I've made, or what I've put in the car to make that 465 horsepower. So this head is basically a bare head. There's basically nothing in it at all besides these cams. So we're gonna start off with the cams. So these cams right here, you will not be able to tell, but these cams are the BC Brian Crower 272 cams. Back then, when I did purchase these cams, they're on the BC website, Brian Crower. But I recently actually went on the website just to see if I can find some valves, springs, and retainers, and they actually discontinued these specific cams. So the other cams that you can go with are the Kelford cams. A lot of people go with the Kelford cams. If I were to switch, I would be getting those, but as of right now, I have the BC 272 cams. They're basically brand new. And if I could zoom in, or if you guys can see, these cams barely got wear at all. These are still brand new. For the next part, we have the springs and retainers. So I don't have the springs and retainers on me right now. They're actually upstairs in my room, but I used the BC springs and retainer kit. Unfortunately, when I got my head ported recently, the person that ported the head left the springs and retainers out. So there's a little bit of pitting on the material itself for the spring. It's a steel spring, and I didn't like the way that the pitting looked. So I'm gonna be going with getting another set of BC springs and retainers. I've been looking at different options. Ferrea has one. They have the double spring, just like how the Hondas have it. I might see if I can get those. If not, then I will go again with the BC springs and retainers kit. That is actually essential when you get the cams installed, and if you want to hold boost, that's what holds the valves open. So we will talk about valves. Right here are the valves. I actually cleaned them up. They used to look completely disgusting, and since they were disgusting looking, I actually took them and cleaned them up myself at a secret undisclosed location. But these are what the valves look like. Okay, so these are the valves right here. So we have the exhaust valves and we have the intake valves. So the intake valves are gonna be, they look a little bit flatter and a little bit bigger. The size difference is actually a key because you'll see that the intake side is a lot bigger than the exhaust side. I did show you an example in that clip. So these are the Ferrea 6000 series valves. These valves are made with a stronger material than the steel. I'm not sure what material it is. I think it's titanium at the top, and then at the bottom it goes into a steel or something like that. I forget how they mix their compositions with these valves. But these are some very, very, very nice valves. I love these valves. And what I wanted to do is go ahead and get another set of these, but they're actually kind of expensive. So, you know, I gotta see what I'm gonna do. Only a couple of them got messed up. Like again, they were left in the rain, but a lot of them are still good. So I can actually reuse these and use it for the next build. Okay, so I was rudely interrupted. My camera actually overheated, but like I was saying, we are finally gonna be upgrading the head just slightly. In the clip that you're gonna see right here, I actually finally got the head ported and polished, so we can get as much airflow into the motor as possible. I know typically you don't really need to port and polish your head, especially when you're turbo, but what I wanted to do is make the head even more efficient than it is. If you guys don't know, when I went on the last time I went to get dynoed, there was a guy there that used to work on 2 AZFEs, and back then, I guess in 2000, like they were actually popular motors that people used to swap into MR2s and different type of cars. Basically, this used to be the K series before the K series even came out. I have a feeling that they basically based the K series off of this motor and just made it better. What the guy was telling me was the heads actually flow just as good as the K series. The K24, the K20, A2s, stuff like that. So that's gonna be the upgraded part of the head. Everything else I'm gonna have basically the same when I rebuild the car next year. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and talk about the engine. For the bottom end, we have the 2AZFE. Of course, you guys already know that. I'm gonna repeat that like a million times. So the block that I just showed you was the bottom end. This is actually a second bottom end. I actually traded with my fabricator a few years ago because, as you guys know, the last couple of videos ago, which was like 3 years ago, I actually took apart the motor because there was some type of failure that happened in the motor. Basically, it's a brand new block. Only thing is I have to get it line honed, which is to make the crank caps fit perfectly round so that the crank can spin freely inside of the engine. So since we're on the bottom end section, these are gonna be the parts that I have already and some parts I'm going to be upgrading. Okay, so we're gonna start off with the meat and potatoes. This is the piston. So this piston right here is the Wiseco pistons. These pistons right here were really good to me, but I was having a lot of complications with the motor itself. I don't know if it was because of the pistons or not, but the guy known as Chase Racer or Chase Box on Instagram, I'll put his Instagram label right here. He actually has a Scion XB and he was actually making about 700 horsepower. He said he's gonna make a YouTube video, so I'm gonna link his Instagram video and his YouTube right here on the screen and down below so you guys can check him out. He gives me the best tips when it comes to building my motor. I wish I knew him from before when I was first building the motor. My motor would probably have been solid right now. But back to the motor, these right here, these pistons, they're pretty cheap. They're really good material. If you guys can tell, like right here, there's barely any wear. Like I said, I only had 12,000 miles on the brand new motor. My turbo did let go, so that's the reason why everything started trickling down and all that. I will show you guys my old turbo. But so right now, these are the Wiseco pistons with the upgraded wrist pins. These pistons, like I said, Chase Racebox, he said that a lot of people actually have a lot of complications with these Wiseco pistons alone. What I'm gonna be doing is upgrading the pistons to these JE pistons that I bought a few years back. I haven't used them yet, but I was waiting for the time to use them whenever I took apart this motor. So right here are the new JE pistons, and these things look amazing. Okay, so these are the JE pistons. These things are so nice. I cannot wait to use these pistons. A lot of people have really good reviews about these pistons, and there's a lot of BMW owners that use JE as well. I did want to pair them with a different rod, but we're gonna see when the time comes when I go ahead and build the motor. So these are gonna be good to basically put some high boost into. I do plan on getting at least 600 horsepower on E85. I'm gonna see if I can do a full E85 build because I want more power. That's it, I just really want more power. Or if I can do an E blend, that'll be perfect. All right, so this right here, these are the JE pistons that I just showed you, and I'm gonna show you guys the part number. So if you guys wanna buy these, this is the part number right here. That's what I'm gonna be upgrading in the next motor build. I cannot wait to use these pistons. I feel like I'm gonna have a blast using these, and I'm gonna be able to make as much horsepower as I want, basically. That we are down to the pistons. Next step is what you guys wanna get is the rods. So the rods that I had in my car, well, they're Molnar rods. And basically these rods are good. These have some really nice material. I think they're 4330, or I don't remember the material composition of the rods themselves, but these are forage rods. You want to upgrade your rods so that you don't bend a rod when you are boosting. If you use the stock rods, those things are so skinny and so small, you do not want to use those. That is a disaster waiting to happen. You want to basically get some new rods, get new pistons, and build it up like that. Because once you get this combination with the JE pistons, Molnar rods, or whatever rods you want, BC rods, these have the same exact composition as the BC rods. Once you get that composition, you're able to put some boost into the car. You don't want to use stock rods, stock pistons, because I did that. You definitely don't want to use a stock block and just throw a turbo on it, 200,000 mile motor, because you know that's a disaster waiting to happen. Those pistons that are stock they're like casted. I don't even know what type of material it is, but they break so easily. I went through it. Please do not go through that. Speaking of that, there was a lot of people that actually DM'd me a long time ago that I got back to, but I'm gonna say it in this video. A lot of people asked me if I could, or if they could boost their motor, put a turbo, put a supercharger on a stock block. I do not suggest it at all, only because of the fact that you will bend a rod or you will blow the ring lands off of the piston. I blew the ring lands. Luckily, I didn't bend a rod, because if I bent the rod, the head would have been gone. The head would have been gone. This is the same head that I've had since the stock motor. All right, so real quick, what we're gonna go over is the bearings. So the bearings that I used in my car were the ACL race bearings. These are the standard race bearings. So I'm gonna be using these for the crank caps so that we can have some nice bearings. We don't wanna use OEM. OEM sucks, they have terrible material. This right here is really good material composition, and they have a special coating on it to make the bearings wear at a certain rate. So these bearings here I use for the crank, and I also use the ACL race bearings for the rods themselves. They have the rod bearings for the ACL race series. I'm gonna go ahead and buy another set of those and use those because they actually work really well. When I took out the motor the last time and I disassembled it, yes, the bearings look destroyed, but it actually embedded the material, whatever material I had in the motor got embedded into bearings themselves, and they didn't destroy the crank The crank looks brand new still, and actually the rods look great as well. So right here, I actually have the crank caps right here. And if you guys take a look, if you guys take a close look, you guys can see there's a lot of lines and a lot of grooves that you can feel inside of the cap itself. This was the material. I had low oil and I actually had material in the actual motor itself. Look at the abuse this thing took. This thing saved me. So these bearings saved me. So I'm gonna go ahead and reuse a brand new set of ACL race bearings. The crank looks brand new. There's no grooves, there's no scoring, there's no nothing. So I can go ahead and get it polished one more time and use that once again. So that's why I am sticking with the ACL race bearings. These things are great. Okay, so last but not least, I'm gonna be talking about the things I'm going to be doing to upgrade the last little bit of the motor. I just went through the whole top and bottom end of what I've used and what I'm upgrading to. So I wanted to tell you that I am actually doing the balance shaft delete. A lot of these motors come with a balance shaft to basically get the vibrations out and get the harmonics out. But when you want to do high horsepower, you kind of want to eliminate that, because that's another factor that can go wrong in the motor when it's spinning. It also lightens the load because you don't have to have an extra thing rotating at the bottom of the motor with the motor itself. So it's gonna be able to rev a little bit higher, I believe, and it'll be able to rev smoother and be controlled a little bit more. So what I'm doing is doing the balance shaft delete. I already made my mind up, and I already got the bottom girdle where the oil goes through to go to the balance shafts. I got that all welded up already. All right, so if you guys can see this hole here, this hole right here is the hole that actually feeds the oil to the balance shaft. These little spots in the middle, this whole thing right here is actually where the balance shafts sit inside. I already welded this up so the oil cannot get into the bottom here, because that's a loss of oil pressure there. So I'm glad I got that welded up. Okay, so I went ahead and got that welded up. I'm gonna be deleting the balance shafts. I do not need them no more. And this is not gonna be a daily car, so that's the reason why I'm gonna be deleting that. I don't care about the vibrations. I'm gonna drive it every day, but I'm gonna delete that just so I don't have that worry. Car can rev higher, and there's a lot of other benefits as well. The motor will last a little bit longer from what I've been told. So one other thing that I have upgraded in the motor is the thermostat. This right here is kind of important, because with the thermostat, it basically opens up so that the coolant can flow through at a certain temperature and cool down the car. So the Mishimoto thermostat actually opens up at a colder temperature than the OEM one. I'm not sure what the temperatures are. The Mishimoto one is very nice. From my testing and from me actually having the Mishimoto one, the thermostat actually opens up a little bit before the halfway mark on the hot and cold side of the gauge. What I did was I actually have upgraded spall fans, which I can't get out and show you right now because it's all buried inside the car. But I have two spall fans. I think one is a 14-inch and one is like a 12 or 10-inch. So what I have it is in the reverse direction, where the one on the inside pulls air in through the radiator core, and the other one's on the outside pushing air into the radiator. So it's just two different variations, just so I can have the turbo and the manifold fit correctly. So right here, I have the ATI damper. The box looks really dark because there's a lot of oil on it. Right here is my brand new ATI damper. This thing is gonna help tremendously, and it's gonna help me get the harmonics where it needs to be, and it's gonna balance the motor good. And I will be able to rev better and not have to worry about the balancer shredding into pieces and separating. So this right here is gonna be a lifesaver, and I cannot wait to use it. This thing I've been waiting for a long time, and back when I was building the car, I could not find it, and I did not have money for it to buy it off of somebody. But finally, I found a website that has it. I'm gonna link it down below, Vivid Racing. They have this harmonic balancer, and it's gonna say that they don't have it, but they're gonna find a place that has it for you. Once you pay it, they'll get it shipped to you within a couple of weeks, the standard 2-week shipping. We're gonna be talking about the clutch. So I don't really fully remember what clutch I had. I think it was a Clutch Masters clutch, a stage 3 or 4, the 6-puck clutch. That one really held the horsepower that I needed, the 465. I think it was rated for a little bit lower because when I was in top of 3rd gear, the clutch would actually slip. But powering through top of 4th gear, it would slip. But when I powered through 1st, 2nd, 3rd, it would be fine. And then 4th is when like the heavy power comes on, heavy load, it would slip at the last like 100 to 200 RPM. It was fine. It was really fine, to be honest. And I had a Clutch Masters flywheel as well. That thing held up great. I might be buying another one. I do have the old one. First, I want to see if I can get it resurfaced. And if it can get resurfaced, I'm going to be reusing that. And I'll be so glad to be using that. So now that we're done with the clutch and flywheel option that I have, there's plenty other options you can get. But just make sure you look at the torque rating on what the clutch disc can do, because that's the most important thing. It doesn't matter about the horsepower, but it matters about how much torque the clutch can handle. Okay, so right here we have one of the outside parts. So like I said, I ported the intake and exhaust side, or I got it ported by somebody, and they basically port matched this right here, which is the Weapon R Dragon, or not Dragon. This is just the Weapon R intake manifold, and this thing is a beautiful unit right here. I think this is the only option you have when it comes to a custom manifold that you can buy. Other than that, you're gonna have to ask a fabricator to custom make you a manifold for your TC or for your Toyota Camry. This is an aluminum unit. I went ahead and cleaned the inside and outside. It did have a little bit of oil in it because, like I said, my car had problems with it and it was burning oil a lot after the turbo got blown. So this right here is the Weapon R intake manifold. I'm gonna be using this again for the next build, and this thing is beautiful. I got it on a steal because somebody with the Scion TC went ahead and parted out his car because of some type of accident. And this right here and the thermostat I actually bought from the guy. I think these go for about $500 or $600. I got this for about $300. So that was a steal. I can't wait to reuse this thing. And this is a nice little piece to make it look a little bit shiny inside the car. Okay, so this is for everybody that really wants to know what type of turbo I was using. So back when I was making 465 horsepower, I think 23 pounds of boost, which is low boost for the turbo that I had. This thing right here was a beast. So this is the turbo. This doesn't have the back housing. I'll tell you why in a second. So this right here is the turbo I was using. This is the Borg Warner S300 SX3, I think it was. S300 SX3, I think it was, yeah. So this is the 300 series turbo. This was a 62 millimeter inducer, and the outside I think was like a 73 millimeter for the exhaust side. This turbo right here actually is what blew up my car. The motor setup that I just recently took apart, this is the reason why the car has been smoking for a long time. So I'm gonna have you guys take a closer look. So if you guys can see on the inside, you can actually take a look and see on the very back, very back right here, you'll see, yep, right there, you see where the metal is coming out. Let me turn up the brightness for you a little bit. It's at 640. So if you guys can look inside of here, you can see inside is all mashed up, all messed up right here. Yeah, that's one of the worst ones right here. Okay, so this was the turbo that I was using. This is the Borg-Warner S300 SX3, and this was the 62 millimeter turbo. What happened was either I think I overboosted or a rock actually went inside of this. I did not have a turbo guard at the time, but basically the fins are all destroyed. Backstory is I went ahead and my turbo, I forgot what happened specifically, but the turbo was bad. Turbo wasn't spinning, and what I did was I took it to Boost Labs, and they basically redid the bearings on the inside because it was like burning oil. And then after getting that done, I put the turbo right back on, and I think over boosted it, or a rock hit it, because of the fact that right after, the whole car just literally like revved up, and then after it revved up, the car had a lot of smoke coming out the back, like a puff of smoke. I thought I blew my motor, but I kept on driving because I was on the highway. I was coming home from school, and basically I found out that the fins on the inside were bad. I think the whole turbine on the inside actually moved and literally just spun and just destroyed itself. So it sheared basically, or not sheared, but it destroyed the fins on the inside. This turbo is not usable at all whatsoever. Bearings are bad again, and the fins are bad. So what I went ahead and did was I actually opted for the Borg-Warner S300 SXE turbo, and that one I do not have with me currently because as of today's October 19th, I actually sold the turbo 2 weeks prior. So 2 weeks ago, I sold that turbo. Only reason why is because I'm going to be upgrading to another turbo. That turbo was great, but I want to get into the more ball bearing technology. So what I'm going to be doing is going ahead and probably getting a Pulsar turbo. That's like the new turbos that everyone's going to be using in competitions and stuff. They still use Precision, they still use Garrett, but I've been seeing Pulsar turbo come to light in the past couple of years. I think I'm gonna go ahead and get one of those. If not, I'm probably gonna go back to getting a Borg-Warner because they actually came out with a brand new style turbo, which is basically the same thing as this, but just different billet wheel, different type of wheel. It's not billet. The other turbo I had a billet wheel, so it can spool up faster, but they have some better technology now. So we'll see. That's gonna be for a later time, a later video. Once the motor is put back inside the car, I'll decide what type of turbo I wanna get. Okay, so last but not least, there's two things left on the build on how I made 465 horsepower. This right here is the Tile 44 millimeter wastegate. This thing right here is a beast. 44 millimeters is the standard that you wanna start off with. You can go ahead and get a 60 millimeter that will help regulate the boost a lot better than the 44. On my old manifold, I did have a dual 44. So I had one 44 on this side and one on this side, and it was amazing. The thing sounded so good. But unfortunately, the manifold kept on cracking, and it was just a thin material that just kept on cracking back to back to back. So my fabricator thankfully helped me out, and he gave me a little warranty, major warranty actually. And he gave me, or he didn't give me, but he made a brand new turbo manifold. So this is a manifold that you cannot get anywhere else. The person that made it was LG Motoring official. So LG Motoring was the one that made this for me, Lee at LG Motoring. This is a great manifold. This is a really thick material. I'm not sure what steel it is, but this is a really heavy steel. The other one was a little bit lighter, a little bit thinner. This one is a lot thicker for higher horsepower applications. He did tell me that this material here they use on the 1500 to 2000 horsepower Supras, the Mark IV Supras. So I was actually really excited. I have not yet tested this setup right because of the fact that I took apart the whole motor, but I'm excited. As you can see, I did drive it. You can see that the color changed. It got like a nice little color to it, but you'll see once it gets really dark, that's how you know I put a lot of heat into it and I was running it a lot. But I didn't get to fully use this manifold yet, but I'm excited to use it with the new turbo setup that I'm going to be doing in the future. So, and another thing, there was another problem with the motor where the motor couldn't breathe good. I didn't know how to go about getting a catch can setup. I was told by my tuner to get a catch can as fast as possible, and I never did. And that was a bad mistake that I regret. Basically, when I took apart the motor, I went ahead and bought a couple of things, which is the ATI Damper to help. So I also went ahead and got this 3-filter catch can right here. This is the oil catch can by Speed Factory. And this catch can is gonna be helping me basically regulate the air that's coming out of the crankcase. So what you wanna do when you turbocharge your cars is you wanna get a catch can, the air that's going from the bottom up to the top, pressurizing the motor, you want it to be siphoned out. And you put the lines, the AN-10 lines on the side here, and basically it's going to vent to atmosphere, vent everything out, so that it can pull, basically like a vacuum, pull the air out of the motor to help the motor breathe a lot better. I didn't do this in the first place, and I should have, because it would have made my motor last a lot longer than it did. It probably would still be running today if I got a catch can. This is a really important factor that you really want when you turbocharge any type of car that you have, not just the Toyota Camry or the Scion TC. You want it on any car that you turbocharge. So make sure you get an oil catch can and do it correctly. All right, so last but not least, we're gonna be talking about the body of the car. I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you about it, show you little clips, show you little pictures. I got the car on the side outside of the garage. New rims, so previously back then I had these silver rims that had a lot of spokes on it. A lot of people loved that setup, and they asked me why I got rid of it. Only reason why I got rid of it is because of the fact that I wanted lighter wheels for lighter rotating mass. So what I did is I got a pair of Enki RPF 1s. That's just the standard wheel that everybody has, but they're the lightest wheel, one of the lightest wheels in the industry. So I went ahead and got RPF 1s with some Netto NTO 5s on the front and just some random tires in the back. Because I'm front wheel drive. That is what I have for the rest of the outside of the car, and we have a couple more things. So what I also have is the AFR gauge from AEM, and I have an oil pressure gauge from AEM as well. You want to go ahead and get an oil pressure gauge and a AFR gauge so you can check to make sure your car is in good health while you're in boost. You do not want to have a car with no boost gauge, no oil pressure gauge, or no air fuel ratio gauge, because of the fact that you need to monitor that when you are boosting around, when you're doing your thing. You want to keep an eye out on that, make sure that the levels are where it's supposed to be at. So that's what I have. And I also have an electronic boost controller, not just a regular analog one. I have an electronic boost controller that can basically electronically control the boost, and I can ramp in the boost faster, I can make it go in slower, and we can hook it up to the ECU so that the computer can do all the work. So the final piece of the puzzle that every single person has been asking me is, what type of ECU do I run? So the ECU that I run is the Greddy eManage. Do not get that ECU. That is old 80s, 90s technology. There are way better options today. So what I suggest anybody does when they're trying to turbocharge a car, to build the car, get a Haltech ECU, the Haltech 1500 ECU. I will link it below with all the other products that I have. That is the #1 thing you need. That was one of the single-handedly worst decisions that I made, was getting the Greddy eManage, because it actually blew up my first motor. and I continue to use it to get to the 465 horsepower. When you get up to the higher horsepower ranges, you want to be able to control everything. You need a Haltech ECU or Fuel Tech. They have Fuel Tech as well, but there's some variables. Tuners will let you know why you want to get certain things. So that is going to complete the video. This is a video that I have been trying to make for the past 2-3 years, and I haven't had the time, I haven't had the motivation, but I think today is the right day to do that. So if you guys did enjoy the video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and go ahead and check out my photography page at InShane Media. I post a lot of car content, and I post a lot of portrait photography as well. And my main page is going to be linked there as well. So if you guys want to contact me through my main page at Shane Lewis. And I hope you guys have a good one, and stay tuned for the next video. Peace out.